All right, final segment here on this episode of the Three Technique, and we've got Hot Takes Spring Ball Edition. Spring Ball wrapped up around the country, and we'd like to know what your post Spring Ball hot take is. Right in at Three Tech Pod, Instagram, Twitter, in the YouTube comments as well. We'd love to hear from you. Guys, I'll kick us off here. Last year, I beat the drum for Penn State to get into the college football playoff. I was just sure that this, of all seasons, was the year that Drew Aller was the promised one. That defense was going to carry them to a Big Ten championship game, and the offense would do just enough. And really could not have been more wrong because the defense was great, but in the biggest moments, they failed to show up. And the offense really didn't do much at all during the entire season. So, guys, my post spring ball hot take, maybe it isn't all that hot, but that Penn State has completely missed the bus. I'm really worried that Penn State has missed their chance, not only for this year, but for the foreseeable future, right? Drew Aller, let's start with him. Did not look very good in the spring ball. In the highlights or lowlights, whatever you want to call them, he looked overwhelmed at times against his own defense. He has no ability to throw the football down the field. And his top wide receiving option decided that the Auburn quarterback situation was better than playing at Happy Valley. Keandre Lambert Smith walks out the door. He's on the plains now. So this defense for Penn State's going to be really good. But guys, in the new Big Ten, where Penn State's schedule looks like this at West Virginia. Hey, Neil Brown, how you doing over there with the Mountaineers? They've got Bowling Green. They've got Kent State. That's great. But then Illinois, UCLA at USC before a bye week, at Wisconsin, Ohio State, Washington, at the Spoilermakers, at Minnesota, and then home against Maryland. If history is our guide, there's at least two, maybe three losses on that schedule for an underwhelming James Franklin led program, guys. Let's be honest. They just fail to win the big game. And now that you've got the likes of Oregon and Washington in the Big Ten, I'm scared that Penn State might be able to compete for a playoff berth, but hanging a conference banner, I'm not seeing it right now.
Okay, hold on. Because you're saying if history is our guide, there's two or three losses on there. Who have they lost to the last couple of years, not named Ohio State or Michigan in the regular season?
Oh, it's not that they've got a name on this schedule that I'm afraid of. Honestly, it's Mr. Expectations. It's
Hmm.
it's Mr. Big Moment that I'm scared of. And you look at USC, we'll see what the Trojans are like this year, but they have been noticeably weaker in big games on the road. That for sure has been an issue for them. They miss Michigan this year, which honestly may work to their detriment because Michigan may fall off a cliff this season. We don't really know what that offense is going to look like. The defense has some nice pieces, but also lost some guys to the transfer portal. Ohio State was at Wisconsin, Ohio State, Washington probably is the toughest stretch. But really, what I'm saying is without a quarterback who's shown he can take the next step, he can throw the football down the field. What have we seen defenses do? We've seen them stack the box and dare them to throw the football over their heads, and Penn State honestly hasn't been able to do that since the days of Trace McSorley.
Yeah, I see the concern, but that same problem has not held Penn State back in the Big Ten the last 2 years from being a 10-win program. They've won 10 games the last 2 years. I don't see them taking a drastic step back, even if Drew Aller is not who they hoped he was. They're hoping he can step up. And your main point, I think, is they're missing their championship window, and I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're going to fully collapse. I would still pick them to make the college football playoff. Now they might get bounced in the first round by an SEC team that loses 3 games, but I would still right now pick them to make the college football playoff just on schedule alone. Like right now, just picking the games in a vacuum, it's hard. They're going to have the most talented team on the field other than the Ohio State game.
They should. They absolutely should. But you start off the season in a raucous environment, right? At Mountaineer Field against suddenly a West Virginia team that's got a lot of top preseason top 25 votes, guys. I mean, you're seeing them inside the top 20, which I think is a little rich for my blood. But on the road, raucous environment, that concerns me right out of the gate, right? Aller has no warm-up period. That one really concerns me. And then you've got, like I mentioned, at Wisconsin, Ohio State, and Washington, not to mention UCLA and USC as well. It's not that I don't think this team could make the college football playoff. I absolutely do. Like you said, they should be one of the most talented teams in the country, especially on that defensive side. Abdul Carter, KJ Winston, who I think is going to turn a lot of heads as an NFL safety prospect next season. I think they're loaded star potential wise. I just don't know if that offense is going to be good enough. Again, from what I saw in spring ball, to get them over the hump and make them a team that can threaten for that championship potential.
Right. Well, and Mitch, I don't want to put words in your mouth or nothing here, but there's a difference between saying like, oh, like just this year versus like they missed their window. Right. In my opinion, like this year, it might be okay, but what are they going to do this year that like really, really inspires people to show up at Penn State that's going to change something? Right. Like they got the highly esteemed quarterback and it turns out he wasn't all that good, or maybe he was that good and they just didn't develop him. Right. Or they are losing their top talent, walking out the door to go play for Auburn. Right. And they're losing some guys there. Like who's showing up that's going to dramatically improve their roster so much? Are they going to switch their coach over? Who are they hiring if that's the case? That's going to dramatically change your program. Like what's the move that Penn State makes that extends their window, right? Or that takes this championship window that they maybe could have had if they put a couple pieces together, not quite lost to Michigan or Ohio State for a couple years. Like what's extending that window outside of just, well, the playoff got bigger, so it's going to be easier to make it. Like, you know what I mean? There's, anytime you make the playoff, I guess you got an outside shot at winning it, win a couple of games, someone goes down for injury, all of a sudden you got a better chance at winning the game. But like, I just don't see, the window being there. Right? This year might be fine. This year might be okay. I just don't see them doing anything this year that inspires enough confidence to make people go, oh, okay, yeah, Penn State, they're on the rise. Here we go. That's the team to go to, destination, right? They're just not winning at like today's college football. And I don't think that they're going to do that under what they currently have.
They're not winning at today's college football with a 4-team playoff, but they're going to be a fascinating case study in what is good enough for a rabid fan base. Because if you look at their history over the last decade under James Franklin, if we had a 12-team playoff, they'd be in it way more often than not. And you can argue, you can look at the matchups and argue on if they would win a game or two and what's a good ceiling for that Penn State program. I don't think that they're going to compete for true national championships, but they're going to be in the dance more often than not, I think, under James Franklin with a more balanced Big Ten schedule. Going to be a fascinating case study to see if that's good enough in a new modern college football.
Gracious him. How about